What do you remember hating the most being a child? People making fun of me. Grown-up included. When you went to a family friend's house and you were playing with their children and then your parents said it's time to go, so you'd go and stand by them, but then the adults would remain talking for another half an hour, but you couldn't go play with the kids because you were about to go. So you had to listen to adult talk whilst staring at the coffee table. Edit. Wow, thanks for the replies. It's sad to see I wasn't the only one who had to endure this violation of human rights as a child. A lot of people have asked if I'm from the Midwest or Latino, and the answer's no, I'm Australian. But it's very common here. I remember the absolute worst one was when I stayed overnight at my friend's house for his birthday and we were watching this new Pokémon series he had gotten for his birthday. Then my mum came and picked me up half an hour early and I had to sit in my friend's sister's room, listening to mine and his mum talk about their childhood and ghost stories for an hour while my friend watched Pokémon in the living room. The lack of freedom. I wasn't allowed to do a lot of things that I wanted to. False accusations, but when you try to defend yourself you get told to shut up, or even worse, you get punished further. Going to bed when other kids are still playing outside. The cruelty of other kids. I don't know if hate is really the right word. But when I was really little, I was terrified of my dad. My earliest memories of him are being woken up in the middle of the night when he got home, smacked around a bit, and sent off to bed again without so much as an explanation. "You know what you did," he would say. But of course I didn't. Because why would I ask if I already knew? I put a ton of work into trying to keep him happy and not pissing him off, but it didn't always work. I say hate might be the wrong word because I didn't really know better back then. I didn't start hating him until I met kids and parents that had better relationships. Which wasn't until high school. Until then, that was just how it was and I didn't really question it. Being 4'3", with the voice of a tuba. That my feelings didn't matter. If I was feeling anything other than happy, I had to get over it. If I was crying, I was ordered to stop or get something worth crying over. Being talked down to, or people laughing at me when I was telling them something serious. Living in a house with just one bathroom and so many people. Seemed like someone was always using the toilet or the shower when others needed use of the room. Family gatherings. Had a large extended family as an Indian and there would gatherings and functions almost every week. Coming of age. Housewarming. Marriage. First birthdays called for gatherings between 100 to 2,000 people. You had to dress up and meet people that apparently cleaned your snot as a baby expecting you to remember that they did so. It was horrid. Kinda miss it now though. Having to lie to stay out of trouble. Not getting explanations for things I asked about. My parents and extended family were good-hearted people. But none of them were very intellectually minded. So when I had questions about how things in the world were supposed to work or operate, the answers were frequently unsatisfying, ranging somewhere between, "Because it just is," to, "I don't know," and, "I don't know," was sadly never followed up with. But let's find out. I have of course overcompensated with my own children on this to a fault. As my eldest son said, "I'm afraid to ask you what time it is. Because then you'll want to teach me how to build a clock." Adults not taking me seriously when I'd say I was full, needed a wheat, didn't feel well. We don't tell adults they have to eat if they're full or to just hold it if they need the loo. Getting chastised for falling down accidentally and getting scrapes. Ended up hiding one because of fear and got a permanent scar from it not healing properly. Being told no without any explanation. That's just going to make me do it to find out myself. What I remember most was some adults not treating me like a human being just because I was a child. I try so hard with my own kids to step back and treat them as fellow humans and not just children. A 4-year-old needs their own space and gets frustrated and gets angry in exactly the same way I do. They just don't have the vocabulary and awareness to express it. My job is to help them express it, validate it and teach them how to deal with it. Not just to tell them to stop whining. In teens specifically. Grow up and be more independent. Gets a job and saves to eventually move out one day. You need to come home sooner. I don't care if you have a job, I'm still your mother, father. My mother stigmatizing me for loving pink, playing the flute, wanting to be a nurse, etc. As a young child, my mother forcing me into social situations despite my extreme shyness. She always hated the fact I was shy. As a teen, my grades were never good enough. Even if I had an A, it could always be a higher A. If my grades dropped to a low B, I would be drug tested and she would tell me she was surprised when I came back clean. The beatings when dad was drunk. Being made to eat foods that I couldn't stomach or which were in amounts that were too much for me to handle. You can't leave the table until you finish everything on your plate. I hated wasting food, but I developed clever ways of sneaking unwanted food away and disposing of it without a trace. Thankfully my parents didn't pull the "there are starving people in Africa" routine, because my answer would have been, "So give it to them." Being treated like an imbecile, while you were just lacking some context. My dad was a drunk with opinions. He would keep me and my brother up till late and scream lectures at us about history or ethics or how much he hated our mom. He would wake me up in the middle of the night and talk at me for hours, if we got an answer on Jeopardy wrong that we should have known. Lecture. Such angry, drunken lectures. He would throw things at us. Hit us on the head to wake us up. I hated it so much. He died of liver failure when I was 17 and 22 years later I can say him dying was the best thing to happen to me. Getting my hair combed after bathing. Half an hour of ouchies. Being so sad that I wanted to kill myself. But being too young to know how suicide works. Instead I cried under a tree and begged God to make me dead. Other children were taking advantage of me. Santa Claus. I threatened to shoot him down with a missile launcher. Everything being about what's best for my future. And ignoring the importance of a child's quality of life and mental health. Being abused. And if I stood up for myself I would be kicked out. Then when I would go stay at a friend's they would make me come back home, rinse repeat. The fact that no one ever liked me unless it was convenient for them. I was nothing but a burden for everyone around me. I was constantly abused emotionally at home and abused emotionally and physically at school. No one cared about me. When you're the younger child you're expected to be the spoiled one and getting everything. Complete opposite for me. My sister could get away with murder. Feeling like I am invisible. When I don't want to be but want to be and can't. When my dad asks everyone's opinion. Gets to me and just jumps over to the next person or goes on about what he thinks. Even in one-to-one conversations. Why do people even ask then? Haircuts. The barber my parents would take me to was a total scumbag, would always without fail insult me throughout the process, and when they were done he would try and get the other workers involved to make fun of me as well. To this day I hate getting haircuts because of this. Lack of control. Most adults didn't give a shit about me or my ideas since they only saw me as a child. Having to spend weekends either babysitting my twin brother as early as 6 or doing hard work around the house cabin and not having fun like most kids do. My family has a cabin that I've never fished, swam or boated much, if any, at. I've never played in a play area at a fast food place because I had to sit at the table and make sure no one tampered with or threw away our food while my brother played. Basically, I spent most of my childhood being the responsible adult and missed out on a lot of kid stuff. People thinking I'm always lying. No one believing what I'd say as a child really fucked me up in the long run. Being forced to move every couple of years and having to make all new friends with what I would later come to learn is called crippling social anxiety. Being regularly beaten up by a dozen girls in primary school at once and no one helping me. I didn't fight back. Also being beaten up regularly by my father and no one helping me. When the adults were talking to each other and I wanted to say something but I had to wait until they finish so I don't interrupt them. My dad would always be smoking and the entire house smelled like smoke. I hid his cigars. He got mad at me. I told him to stop smoking. Got some blown directly into my face. He even smoked in the car when I was sick. Nothing is worse than barely being able to breathe and still being forced to smell smoke. Getting into trouble for something I didn't do. Being laughed at for being that fat kid with freckles. The fat kid with freckles is now an adult woman with fucked up eating habits. Who will refuse to eat in front of anybody. Wearing heavy makeup on a daily basis so that my freckles won't show. People telling me that I shouldn't put so much effort into what I'm doing. I am now in year 12 and I am no longer motivated to be able to care or do anything now. Being told that my issues weren't important. As an adult, I'm choosing to learn a lot about the ways I behaved growing up, and it turns out that I probably had some pretty severe developmental and behavioral issues. When I would try to articulate what was happening and the way I was feeling, I was always told that adults have real problems to worry about. And when I would act out or inconvenience my family at all, my mom would explode on me. It caused me to be extremely meek as a child, which caused some people to take advantage of me in ways I don't talk about. When the other kids didn't include me in their games because one kid I got in a fight with convinced the other kids to not play with me because I am a bad person LMAO. Being treated like anything I say was invalid or stupid. Yes, I am scared. I am a child. I can be afraid of the men running around outside with guns wanting to rape and kill me. Like especially when we moved to Australia for safety. Just all the adult thinking I know nothing and that life can't be hard. I just remember feeling trapped and worthless. Even these days people pretend like they are the shit. Well, I am so happy for you. You know, since you don't get panic attacks when you are in a room that you feel you can't escape from. Sorry this got a little off topic. It just always gets me emotional and so I just start talking it out. Christmas. Fake gifts in place of the shit that really mattered. Christmas is forever stained.